Blender? I hardly even know her. And it can only go uphill from here.
Elliot he's learning Blender, and that's what this video's about.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another Elliot video. I am of course your host, Elliot, for this evening, and this is my big microphone. Look how big it is. Lovely to see you again. I missed you all so much. So much time goes by between videos, and I just don't know what to, when I'm not posting, I'm just sitting down doing nothing. That is my life off camera. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, it's not all flash being a YouTuber. Sorry. Yeah, I have a gallery wall now. Sue me, I'm a graphic designer. I need a gallery wall. It's like the most important part of any graphic designer's space, and now it's legit. And this Monstera may be leaning, but it is healthy. Blender, that's a 3D software that I promised you all I would start using around like halfway through last year, I think. And hey, good news everyone, I'm actually using it. I didn't think I would do it. I'm not very consistent with using it, but I have made a few things that I want to show you today, and I'm very proud of myself, if I'm being honest. The point of this video, I guess, is to kind of like convince you, the viewer, if you haven't started Blender yet or haven't started maybe that new skill that you've been wanting to try, new program that you've been wanting to learn. This video hopefully will help you in that journey maybe and give you a little bit of motivation that you might need. I'm going to show you my journey, what's kind of been working for me, a few of the tutorials that I've used that I found really helpful. And no, I didn't do the donut, I know. But yeah, I just want to show you all the stuff that I've made because I'm really proud of it. And just before we get into it, it is of course time for today's featured item of the week. Today's featured item of the week is the Kyle Kuzma Washington Wizards City Edition jersey that I was gifted for Christmas. The first thing I want to show you is the last thing I made. Consider this the hook of the video, okay? Because this was the 6th thing I made in Blender. And it is a self-portrait. I love this guy so much. A lot of people say it looks like Wallace and Gromit. That's so fair. I'm working on the teeth to kind of change that. Not that I don't think it was like a thing that needed to be changed, but I want to make it more me, I guess. But have a look at that mullet. I made a mullet. I used the comb tool in Blender to style hair into a mullet. It was the coolest thing I've ever done. And we'll talk more about this, but six things I've designed up until that point. Unreal. So when I was just starting, I was obviously like, oh, what's the first thing that I should do? And look, there's the donut, of course. Everyone knows the Blender donut, but the amount of people I've heard who never finished the donut, because it's a big tutorial, there's a lot of things to take in from that tutorial. I just knew that I wasn't going to finish it if I started that donut. So I decided to not do the donut, and I instead did this tutorial, which is of course Internet Girl's first render tutorial. And let me tell you, when I say this is the place to go when looking to start Blender. It's this little bottle in like a vacuum sealed kind of packet, and it plays around with like physics simulations, a little bit of sculpting, a little bit of compositing at the end as well. There's a bunch of stuff that this tutorial covers, a lot of stuff that I still use in my renders now, and it was very, very helpful. Intra's also very good at making it as accessible to everyone as possible. There's a lot of like things that require a high-end computer in Blender to do, but there are some steps that you can skip. Like you don't have to do the simulation stuff, or there's different, little settings that you can change, and Intra kind of explains it all as you go on. Go check out Internet Girl if you haven't already. The best Blender tutorials I've used so far, and changed my life. Now I love Blender so much, and I can't wait to do more Blender thanks to Internet Girl. That was day one of what was intended to be a weekday challenge where Monday to Friday I would work on Blender for an hour and I would make something. The issue was that I would do it for an hour in the morning, and half the time I would end up spending 4 or 5 hours on Blender because I was having that much fun. So I kind of went too hard too fast and took a little break after the first 5 days. But the first 5 days, it's a cool progression. So that was day one. Consider that. This was day two. It was another Internet Girl tutorial. It was the bubble text one, another great tutorial. It was funny. I watched this one intending to be my first tutorial that I was going to watch. And then she was like, select the face, one of the faces of the cube. And I could not figure out how to select the face of the cube. And I was like, I should probably do the beginner tutorial. So that was a good idea. Maybe don't jump in to an intermediate or even a beginner tutorial. Do the most basic tutorial you can, because Blender is one heck of a program. But yeah, once again, super happy with how this came out. It just looks great. Playing around with those physics simulations again, like you kind of create these bubble letters and then you create a cube around them and then you literally expand the letters like balloons. The end result is always going to look good, I feel, based on the constraints that you kind of set up in the first place. So, and then you can choose the colors and change around a few other things, and big crowd pleaser. People love this one. People are really impressed with the bubble text. Also, forgot to mention I have a second camera angle today. Obviously, I'm underutilizing it. It's just here for this gag. I don't have any intention of using it after this gag. Back to me. Day 3, and I made an animation. Oh my god. As some of you may know, I have a little logo kind of shape that I use a lot. It's a little 11-pointed star. Of course, I had to make it into 3D. So for this one, I followed 2 tutorials. I can't remember the name of the first one, but I'll pop it up on the screen. But it was just one that could turn essentially an SVG into a 3D object. And this is very helpful if you're looking to just get like your logo, chuck it in Blender, and then give it a little bit of extra depth. And then I followed this Blender clay stop motion shader tutorial by Southern Shoddy, who is like one of the big dogs, I would say, of the Blender tutorial scene. Really good tutorial. This one I followed it step by step, and I found it very easy to follow. It was also cool that it wasn't just like a simple shader that was still. Like I kind of went into it looking for just like a still clay shader, and then the fact that there was like a stop motion one meant that I could do that animation. And I mean, the animation part was quite easy. It's just if you know like Premiere Pro or After Effects, if you know how am I forgetting the word for this? What? Keyframe? Is that really what it is? Keyframes. God, I'm surprised it's keyframe. If you know the basics of keyframes, then you can pretty easily do like a simple rotation and stuff. So that was pretty cool. I'm glad that those skills kind of carried on. But then things like looping and stuff is a bit tricky, but it's all explained in this tutorial. So I had a lot of fun with this one. And yeah, animation is something I'm looking to do more of. I haven't done it since, but it was quite easy so I'm looking forward to doing it again. On day 4, I just wanted to play around with that object that I made, the little star, and then play around with some different textures and materials. I'd always wanted to make hair on a shape, or just see how easy hair was to make in Blender, and it was very easy, turns out. Let me find the tutorial. It was by this account called Jonas, and it was a felted handmade hair tutorial, and very good tutorial. Check this one out if you're looking to do some hair. I found this very easy to follow. The glass shape was more just experimenting with the different settings in the materials panel, just playing around with like roughness and the metallic and specular little things, and I eventually got something that I was happy with, but it left me wanting more, and that's why on day 5 I made this. This is one of my favorite things I've made for sure. I'll say as well, the whole time this shape had the worst topology in the world. I would remesh the hell out of this thing. I didn't really know how to remesh things too well, so the topology of the shape was really bad. With what I know now and what I'll get into later, I would definitely be able to fix it up more, but the topology's trash, which had a few interesting effects, I think, on all the lighting that this one had, but honestly, it turned out pretty sick. So I followed this tutorial by Neeraj Kashyap called Blender 3.0 Advanced Glass Dispersion Shader in Cycles X. And cycles is the key word there, because up until this point, I'd only really been using Eevee, which is one of the 2 render engines, Cycles being the other one. And I was like trying to make that glass object in the last design, and I was like, why can't I get it transparent? Why? Turns out I just had to be rendering it in cycles, and then there's like a box that you can tick for transparency, so that made things a lot easier. And then I just played around with a bunch of other lighting effects, I think, and got to what we have, which was a really nice little glossy object. So yeah, very happy with that. And then I took a 1.5 month break. Was this break intentional? Unfortunately not. I did go away for a little bit and have a nice little bit of a break, but turns out all it took was the 2-day break, that is the weekend, to completely stop my momentum. And I think I had another client project on or something, which was a shame, but you know. On January 9th, I got back into it, which is really exciting, and I followed the tutorial of all tutorials. Honestly, this one was the most helpful thing. It was this easy sculpting tutorial by Farouk 3D, and let me tell you, easy doesn't say enough about this tutorial, because oh my god, this has changed my life forever. I had really been wanting to get into characters, and I was confused because the only way I could sculpt was just by taking the basic shapes and then using like the different keyboard shortcuts and stuff to, you know, extend and do all that stuff. And I was just getting weird stuff and nothing was really... I wanted it to feel like I had a ball of clay in my hands and I could just mold it the way I wanted. And then turns out there is a thing for that. There's the sculpt tool. And this tutorial covers everything that the sculpt tool has to offer. And yeah, I'm now obsessed with the sculpt tool. So my animal turned out a little bit different to the tutorial's animal. Mine's got a little bit creepier, not as much love behind this character's face, I guess. It's a bit more intense, but that was kind of what I was going for, so I was okay with that. I was someone who was very good at drawing as a kid, but only at drawing like things that had already been drawn. Like I could copy really well, right? But I couldn't come up with any original characters or anything that I liked and would want to work well enough. Like I couldn't imagine it in my head. But there's something about the sculpt tool that just makes so much sense to me. These basic shapes that you can kind of push together and pull and see what happens before moving it again. Just something that I found drawing never really gave me. So I was really, really enjoying the sculpting process. And on the next day, I finished the cat by adding some textures and all that, thanks to part 2 of the same tutorial by Farouk 3D. What I loved about that tutorial is the effect that I got on the eyes, this glossy, glassy eyes. You'll notice in my self-portrait, it's the same eyes, and that's because I think it's perfect. I don't want to change those eyes at all. I don't want to give any more details than the eyes, and then just like these big balls with like real shine to it. I love it so much. And I've been coming back to this tutorial a lot to remember a few things, such as like, I think they're called, to learn a few things. To learn a few things that I can't remember right now. Texture painting, vector groups or something? Color attributes. Things like it makes sense if it would make sense if I had the thing open in front of me. And what this cat meant for me is that I finished it and I went, you know what? I reckon I can make my own character now. And I was ready. I decided it's time. I'm going to do my own thing. And that I did. I said that I was going to start the process of designing a self-portrait. So for my next work, we had just hit 60,000 subscribers here on this YouTube channel, and I said that I would do a live stream to celebrate. And you can still watch this live stream now if you check in my live tab. I started the process of making my self-portrait, also known as my magnum opus. This is what it looked like to start. I designed it with the help of some lovely people in the YouTube chat. Thank you to all those experts in the chat helping me out as I went along and slowly forgot the things that I had learned in the tutorials I just did the day before. But he's a funny looking guy. He's great. Love the massive teeth. The eyes are fantastic, as I said. Even the little details in the ear I really like. And it was definitely a really good start, and I was ready to move on and do a little bit extra. So the next day I gave him a mullet, of course, and this is where we kind of are today. I bloody did a million tutorials on how to get perfect hair, and I spent the whole day on this damn mullet, and I'm so glad I did because it looks so good. The only issue is that it's got a lot of issues. I can't actually go in and edit it without crashing Blender, so I'm going to start again, but I kind of get the idea now, and I feel like I can make it better. There's actually hair growing out of the eye and the ear that you can't really see because most of the fringe covers it, but I want it to move around and stuff, so I want it to be perfect before I start animating. In fact, I'm starting the entire self-portrait again pretty much. Not to detract from how much I like this, but I'm starting it again because I know more now about topology and remeshing and stuff, so yeah. I put a message out to my Instagram story asking my sweet followers if any of them had any idea on how to, if there was something in Blender, like a plugin or something that I could get that would mean that I didn't have to do any retopology, because retopology is absolute hell. For those of you who have never heard of this term before, it's basically like every object that you make has a map kind of, or a grid, a wireframe, and they can look really nice or they can look really bad. The lovely, lovely account Yonk, who I just absolutely adore, one of my favorite design duos ever. They do a lot of their work in VR and then they take it into somewhere like Blender, and I was always like, the VR topology maps must be ridiculously bad, right? And they are, turns out. So they replied to my story and they were like, hey, check out this thing. It's called Quad Remesher, the Quad Remesher plugin. And I was like, this is the only answer I need. They were the first account to reply, and then I was like, I'm set. Look at this before and after of what the topology map was, right? And it loses like hardly any of the quality of the render. So I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed. I can't believe it. Thank you so much, Yonk, for the suggestion. And I am excited. So that's where we're going now, I guess. I'm working on the self-portrait still. I spent a lot of time today and yesterday kind of like trying to fix up the guy. Hopefully by the time I finish this video, I'll have a better product to show you and I can be proud of it and gush over it. But if not, that's a shame. Elliot will let you know either way. I didn't do much. I just kind of like fixed the mouth a little bit because I gave him a tongue. I wanted to give him a tongue. I thought that was important. And then the mouth is like less Wallace and Gromity, I feel, and more me, maybe. I don't know. Mouths are really hard. It's just kind of like a gap in the middle of a head, you know. How to make a creative mouth is interesting. But otherwise, I've just been editing this video, which has been taking me longer than I thought it would. So be grateful. I'm having so much fun though. It is so good. It's just a whole nother world that I never really thought I'd actually be able to learn because it just seemed so intimidating from the start. But oh my god, it's a free software with ridiculous capabilities for a free software. It really makes you think about paying $80 a month for Adobe, am I right? Free software with one of the best like networks around of people who are willing to help and support each other. The communities that I've seen of like 3D artists online and how nice they are and how much they lift each other up, it's so much nicer than the graphic design community, I feel. Not that the graphic design community isn't nice. The Blender community just like has each other's back and it's very sweet. And you can ask any question that you have on Google and you will find an answer pretty much on some forum instantly and everyone will give an answer to it. And it's like, every time I have an issue, I just search it up, someone else has had that same issue, and there's a fix. There is nothing I've done so far that there hasn't been a fix for. It's great. So I'm loving Blender, and I hope that you are too if you have started your Blender journey, or maybe you're years into your Blender journey. I just wish I'd started it earlier, if I'm being honest. I also want to get into sculpting in VR. I have a VR headset, and I have entered the world of VR before, and you can do pottery and stuff in VR, and it's very cool, as well as play some silly games like Beat Saber and other things like that. And I would love to like sculpt some stuff in there just to give a more organic feel, and also I feel like it'd just be easier using your hands rather than your mouth. And then take that into Blender, quad remesh it, and then go from there. So yeah, the future is bright for Elliot's Blender journey. Not to keep tacking on things I want to do, but I've been learning how to add a face rig to my self-portrait. And the end goal, I would say, for that self-portrait is to make it like a working VTuber kind of thing, like a 3D avatar that I'd be able to stream with, essentially. That would be like the end goal, with like moving eyes, eye tracked even, a mouth that moves at the same time as when I speak, and just like little details like the mullet just like swaying in the breeze would be just the best thing ever. So hopefully in like the next month we can do that. But I've decided it could be good if we do this every quarter. Okay, how does that sound? Does that sound good? How's that sound? We all good with that? Does that sound like a good plan? Please comment if that sounds like a good plan. And if so, then at the start of May, I will be giving you an update on my journey, and let's see what 3 months can do, eh? Because it's been about 3 months since I started. I've only made, what, 6, 7 things. So, who knows what another 3 months can do? Just saying. I feel like I've got a good feeling. I think there's a lot of potential in what I can do. I'm really enjoying it. And I'm just really enjoying everything else now too. I think that's the most important thing. Graphic design feels interesting again because of all the stuff I'm learning in Blender. I can see how Blender will help my graphic design posters in general in the future. So anyway, I've talked for too long, so I'm going to sign off. I don't think there's anything. Oh, I want to call this series Elliot is Learning Blender. That's all. That was the one thing I missed from my five dot points. Oh, also, I will be doing a new series on Twitch called Blender Fridays. It'll be at Friday, 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, which is like Thursday night if you're in the States, most likely. Otherwise, it's kind of a bit all over the place. Sorry about the time zones. They suck. It's just 11 a.m. is the easiest for me. And that's where I'll be hopefully at least doing, like if I do one session of Blender a week, it'll be that one, you know? Like, and then in my own time, I'll do more, hopefully. But it will just give me one thing to hold myself accountable for every week is the idea. So come along to Blender Fridays. The link is in the description. That should be good fun. And then I will do streams on YouTube every so often when we hit every 10,000 subscribers or something. You know, so that's the plan. But yeah, feel free to hit that subscribe button if you would like to help the channel push on towards 100,000. Let's go. Or even like the video. That is another thing that you can do. Check out my print store, my Casetify cases, all those things you can buy and you can own, and you can say that Elliot designed that to your friends who also like Elliot, I guess. And otherwise, I will see you next time for some more Elliot wild times. I can't wait to see what I get up to next week. Who knows? I don't. But that's part of the fun. All right, everyone. Have a lovely day. and I will see you soon. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good one. Bye. See ya. See you later. Bye bye. I'm gonna hit stop now. See ya. Bye. See ya.